Part 1. Speculation as to the limits of your abilities arouses far greater admiration and fear than accurate knowledge of them. Show enough skill to impress people, but never let people see you hit the edge of your limits. Hit the edge of your limits only in private. Few people are willing to execute atrocities. Most people are willing to vote for a regime that carries out atrocities, so long as they don't have to personally do the dirty work. It's incredible what a man is capable of once he has given up hope. Only Satan knows the things you'd be willing to do if you had nothing to lose. In every society, there is a positive correlational and causational relationship between IQ and income. In every society, being smart is beneficial when it comes to making money. The more of a free market a society has, and the more technologically advanced a society is, the greater the benefit you get from having a high IQ, rather than a low IQ. Autistic men are interesting. They often have valuable insights due to being exceptionally good at logical reasoning. Psychopathic men are impressive due to their sky-high stress tolerance. Narcissistic men are petty and annoying. Fuck those cunts. No great genius has ever existed without some touch of madness. Aristotle. Finance and law, high IQ. Psychopaths excel. Engineering and STEM, high IQ. Autists excel. Psychopathic men make great politicians, bankers, lawyers, and salesmen. Their high stress tolerance, capacity for ruthlessness, and cunning are all helpful. Narcissistic men make great conmen and salesmen. While wise men find their personalities to be distasteful, the masses, fools, find them to be charismatic. Women consider narcissistic men to be attractive, and autistic men to be repulsive. Narcissistic men equals negative masculinity on the outside, negative femininity on the inside. Autistic men equals hyper-masculinized brain on the inside. Autism comes from genetics. Psychopathy comes from genetics. Narcissism comes from abusive or negligent parents. Narcissism is egotistical and impulsive. Psychopathy is cold and detached. Narcissistic men become low-scale hustlers selling scammy products. Psychopathic men become elite-level politicians and bankers who rule the world. Note that psychopathy and narcissism are by no means mutually exclusive. Indeed, they correlate positively. Jordan Belfort is both. Gender. Psychopathy, exclusively male. Narcissism. There are both male and female narcissists. Autism. Male-dominated. Most autists are men. Career options. High IQ autist? You will excel in engineering and science. High IQ psychopath? You will excel in politics, finance, law, and sales. High IQ narcissist? You can succeed in being a petty conman. To hit it big, see Jordan Belfort, you will need to rein in your egotism and impulsivity. Do not allow your ego to drag you into doing things that stroke your vanity, but that are tactically counterproductive. Do not refuse to engage in courses of action that would be strategically beneficial, but that offend your ego. Outcomes are what matter. Your ego is irrelevant. Narcissists never realize this. Wealth redistribution is expensive. Revolution will be a lot more expensive. The wise man does not fear his demons. He summons them. There are many reasons some people make more money than others. Crookedness is one of them, but not the only one. Victory is acceptable. Death is acceptable. To live with defeat is unacceptable. It is far too painful. There is one narcissistic man with many faces. Once you understand the personality of one of them, you know all of them. Narcissists vary in how smart or dumb they are, intelligence, but their baseline psychology or personality is identical from one narcissist to another. Narcissistic men. Arrogant on the outside, neurotic and insecure on the inside. Their stress always manifests as anger, never as fear. Basically, your annoying ex-girlfriend, but fueled by the boldness of high testosterone. Ad hominem's left-wing Americans throw at right-wing Americans. Sexist, misogynist, racist! Ad hominem's right-wing Americans throw at left-wing Americans. Marxist, communist, socialist. The 48 Laws of Power is even more impressive when you realize Robert Greene wrote it as a 35-year-old broke loser living in his parents' basement. Not hating on the guy. I am genuinely impressed that he went from rags to riches by writing a book on Machiavellianism. Long paragraphs that boil down to "work hard and believe in yourself" do not qualify as actionable information. Left-wing people tend to equate any and all economic inequality with crookedness. They think the only explanation for why rich people have more money than others is because the rich stole the wealth from everyone else. This is foolish. Competence differentials often explain inequality of outcome. Some people make more than others because they are more competent. Luck is another reason. Some people get lucky, while others are unlucky. Psychopaths will do anything for power. Narcissists will do anything for status. Autists will do anything to get some peace and quiet. If you are currently a failure, and your life is on track for this to continue, you should be willing to take risks. You have nothing to lose, in the sense that you have a life not worth living. If a high-risk, high-reward opportunity appears, you should jump on it. Continue to execute high-risk, high-reward strategies until you either win or die. Better to die than be risk-averse and live life as a loser. It's difficult to know if the dynamic of women enforcing political correctness more intensely than men is typical of all societies, or if it is unique to modern America. The American middle class is my favorite fictional character. It exists in the stories told by politicians and economists, not in reality. Boomers. You had the option of being average and having a decent quality of life. Zoomers. Shoot for the stars or drown. Today, if you are average, your life will suck. In real life, Anytime you escalate conflict, there is always some risk it will result in violence and death in combat. On Twitter, there is no such risk, so people are fearless in their attacks. I'd rather pay higher taxes so poor people can get free stuff, universalized healthcare, than not pay more taxes and risk being dragged off to the guillotine. Giving the masses free stuff, universal basic income, is not equivalent to communism, just as drinking caffeine is not equivalent to doing lines of cocaine until you die. Right-wing racism. Reject anyone who doesn't have white skin, because we are white supremacists. Left-wing racism. Affirmative action. Hold different applicants to different standards, depending on their racial group. East Asians held to high standards, blacks held to low standards, whites held to medium standards. A quote from A Limitable Man. Your mother is the only woman who will love you for you, rather than your power. End quote. Addendum. Your sister is also a woman who will love you for you, rather than your power. What are forbidden questions? The questions that you would be punished to ask in public will be the ones that will lead you to the truth. Something autistic men and psychopathic men have in common. They are not politically correct. People have the natural bias of viewing men as evil and women as innocent. Part of this is because women have more neotenous or childlike facial features than men. Feminism takes this natural bias and dials it up to 11. Think of all the things you have concealed from those closest to you. Now realize that as much as you have concealed from them, they have concealed from you. You don't know those close to you as well as you think you do. You don't know them. You only know the mask they wear in your presence. This is a world of masks. A superior is anyone who wields more power over you than you do over them. Whenever you're in the presence of a superior, you must hide your displeasure and fake your contentment. If you express any displeasure, it will annoy them, and they might be annoyed to the extent that they use the power they wield over you to wreck you. In the game of power, this is an elementary point. However, many forget it and violate it when cortisol is running through their veins. Did a superior just order you to do something you don't want to do? Do it immediately and without any complaining. Do it with grace. Fail to do this, and you may face your superior's wrath. Did a superior just express disdain towards you or brazenly insult you? Show no anger or offense. Continue to speak with grace and politeness. Fail to do this, and you may face your superior's wrath. Communists and free market libertarians have something in common. They want their ideology to be instituted, practical consequences to be damned. Left-wing pathology. Being concerned about inequality, putting mechanisms in place to alleviate inequality, and having those mechanisms end up being counterproductive. Right-wing pathology. Callous indifference regarding the suffering of those at the bottom of the dominance hierarchy. Zero concern about inequality. Left-wing nightmare. Communism is instituted to alleviate inequality. The result? Everyone becomes equal, since everyone gets to starve to death together. Right-wing nightmare. Slavery. 1860 America has the chance to end slavery, and the right wing doesn't want to do it, since they have callous indifference regarding the suffering of the people at the bottom of the hierarchy. Communists want to collectivize the farms, even if it means millions starve. See Ukraine from 1930 to 1939. Libertarians want to privatize the healthcare system, even if it means millions die in medical poverty. See America from 1990 to 2020. Ideology means nothing. Practical results mean everything. The only correct ideology is consequentialism. Decisions should be made based on what real-world consequences will be. The way 2020 Americans look back at 1860 Americans who owned slaves is the way our descendants will look back on us for our callous indifference regarding the suffering of the poor. In every culture, being perceived as a victim will win a person's sympathy and assistance, as it should. Modern America is unusual in that a person can win status by portraying themselves as a victim. This is pathological, since it gives people incentives to manufacture grievances and victimhood out of nothing. People suffering from real grievances deserve your compassion and assistance. People who manufacture grievances deserve your disdain. Fuck them. When left-wing revolutionaries tell people at the bottom of the hierarchy that the people at the top of the hierarchy could not care less whether you live or die, it is always true. If you are towards the bottom of the hierarchy, and you are convinced the people at the top care whether you live or die, you are naive beyond comprehension. The reason men are so intense about attaining power is because if you are a man who is powerless, nobody will care whether you live or die. Power is euphemistically referred to as success. Unsuccessful is a euphemism for powerless. Confidence is calm. Narcissism is neurotic. Confident people are calm on the outside and calm on the inside. Narcissists are arrogant on the outside and insecure on the inside. Class warfare. Both the rich and the poor benefit from free markets. Besides that, the interests of the rich and the interests of the poor are usually in zero-sum conflict. What is good for the rich? Low wages and no minimum wage. To the rich, wages represent labor costs. Zero wealth redistribution, so the rich don't have to pay taxes to fund the wealth redistribution. What is good for the poor? High wages and a minimum wage that is generous. To the poor, wages represent income, and they want generous wealth redistribution, funded by high taxes on the rich. Generally, left-wing socialists fight for the interests of the poor. Right-wing free-market libertarians fight for the interests of the rich. Exceptions may apply. Denmark in 2020 is a country where the poor have won the class war. Singapore 2020 is a country where the rich have won the class war. America is in the direction of Singapore. United Kingdom is in the direction of Denmark. A quote from Francesco Guicciardini: "It is the few, not the many, that control the fate of the world." End quote. In other words, wealth is Pareto distributed. It is politically correct to point out that wealth is Pareto distributed. It is politically incorrect to point out that in the heterosexual dating market, men's romantic success is Pareto distributed. Worldly wealth and wisdom are entirely different things, with a correlation of 0. At age 34, Robert Greene had no worldly wealth, was broke, but had immense wisdom, 48 laws. At age 60, Felix Dennis has both worldly wealth and wisdom, how to get rich. At age 50, most people have neither. Anecdotal evidence is untrustworthy, since it is always easy to find an anecdote that will support any narrative. Outlier fallacy. Taking an outlier and presenting it as if it is normal, average, or common. Most people are dumb enough to fall for outlier fallacy. Logic versus charm. For the sake of charming people, you should appear optimistic. People like optimists. For the sake of logical reasoning, your mission is to get an accurate view of reality, which will inevitably make you appear to be pessimistic. Why? Because reality is a nightmare compared to the delusions most people have in their heads. Hindsight shows that pessimists have consistently given more accurate predictions about the future than optimists. One benefit of being high status. Getting meetings with powerful people is easy. When you're unemployed, no one answers your calls. When you're a billionaire, everyone answers your call. The fact that wealth is Pareto distributed is why most people in any society are miserable. A majority of people are relatively poor, low status and powerless, while only a minority is rich, high status and powerful. Assume that everything you were told by those in power in the first 21 years of your life is a lie, because it probably was. Assume everything the masses believe true is a lie, because it probably is. Every society that has ever existed was designed to benefit those at the top, at the expense of everyone below them. Communists call this capitalist exploitation, but to blame it on capitalism is to underestimate how widespread the problem is. It's a feature of every society, not just capitalist societies. Don't blame capitalism. Blame human nature. Freedom of speech is a good thing. People should be free to say what they want without fear of punishment. People shouldn't be thrown in jail or fired from their jobs for expressing unpopular political opinions. Free speech does not cover defamation or credible threats of violence. Defamation should be punishable with lawsuits. Credible threats of violence should be punishable with jail time. Rhetoric equals using emotionally charged words that have no specific meaning. All style, no substance. The masses are dumb enough to fall for rhetoric. Psychopathy is most common at the pinnacle of society, and at the bottom. Left-wing rhetoric. Equality, justice, fairness. Right-wing rhetoric. Freedom, liberty, greatness. Among the rich, you will find high IQ psychopaths. Among the poor, you will find low IQ psychopaths. High IQ psychopath becomes an elite-level politician, banker, or lawyer. Low IQ psychopath. Engages in violent crime impulsively. Spends his life in and out of prison. To stay safe, spend your time with the middle class. This is where psychopaths are the most rare. Communism is a bad idea. That doesn't mean any and all attempts at alleviating inequality are a bad idea. The Overton window of modern America is very far to the right on healthcare. In every other first world country, universalized healthcare is considered normal. In America, it is considered to be a radical, far left-wing idea. Opinion. A significant percentage of rich people got their money via stealing. Granted, my bias is that having spent my life in the financial industry, I have greater exposure than most to white-collar criminals. However, if you spent your life in engineering or medicine, you probably disagree with my opinion, since most of the rich people you encounter on a regular basis made their money honestly. Life truths that the mainstream won't tell you. Above-average intelligence and above-average energy levels are basic requirements for success in every lucrative profession and entrepreneurship. Part 2. An IQ of over 120 and energy to do over 60 hours a week are necessary, though not sufficient. If you lack either of those, then you're doomed. Getting people fired from jobs because they express opinions that you dislike is a low-level warfare. Who is responsible for violence? Young men 18 to 25, with high testosterone levels, low status, poor, and who have zero romantic success with women, incels. Their resentment about their failure to rise up the hierarchy, and their resentment about their romantic failures, drives them to violence. Honor is a male abstraction. Honor is something neurotypical women and narcissistic men will never understand. Narcissistic men embody negative femininity on the inside. Most people think honor and cunning are mutually exclusive. They aren't. The best men have both. Raise your sons to be both honorable and cunning. Honorable men are rare. Cunning men are rare. Men who are both are God. Things that are normally distributed. Bell curve. IQ. Big 5 personality traits. Height. Physical attractiveness. Things that are Pareto distributed. Quality of life. Worldly wealth. Power, status, money, male sexual success with women. Quality of life being Pareto distributed means that most people have terrible lives, a minority of people have good lives, and a tiny minority of people have spectacular lives. Notably, quality of life and worldly wealth correlate positively. Rich people are usually happy, and poor people are usually miserable. And these are both Pareto distributed. High neuroticism versus low agreeableness. Many people mistakenly see someone exploding in anger and think it is caused by low agreeableness. In truth, it is caused by high neuroticism. If you get angry all the time, people stop taking your anger seriously. It becomes a daily occurrence, a nuisance, rather than something to be feared. If you never get angry, and suddenly you are angry, people pay attention. A quote from the 48 Laws. Anger is the most destructive of emotional responses, for it clouds your vision the most. You must always stay calm and objective, but if you can, make your enemies angry while staying calm yourself and gain a decided advantage. End quote. There are no billionaires in Congress for a very simple reason. There is no need to be in Congress if you can buy the Congress. The major institutions of modern America are crooked. Here is how. Government. A group of cronies owned by large corporations. Academia. Instead of being a place of intellectual exploration, academia has become a place monopolized by blank slate theory egalitarianism, political correctness, cultural Marxism, and all that shit. Media. The mainstream media is no longer trustworthy, and hasn't been for some time. Most journalists are more accurately called propagandists. Social Security is a government-enforced Ponzi scheme, created in the 1930s. The fact that in 2020 it's still running, and still has not yet bankrupted the US government, is shocking. There is, however, a $27 trillion debt, and Social Security is the government's biggest spending item. As technology gets better and things become more cognitively complex, the advantage a high IQ person has over a low IQ person becomes more intense. Also, as technology improves, the correlation between money and IQ increases, since high IQ people get a bigger and bigger advantage when it comes to making money. In a hunter-gatherer society, having a high IQ is an advantage when it comes to gathering resources, but it's a small advantage. In a technologically advanced society with computers and the internet, having a high IQ is an enormous advantage. So, as technology gets better, the correlation between the following things get better: IQ, money, and power. Fraternity boy personality. IQ of 110 to 120. Above average intelligence, but not a genius. Extroverted. Disagreeable. Don't underestimate the fraternity boys. Many of them have successful careers in finance, law, and sales. Why? Well, their IQs usually aren't high enough to compete effectively in engineering and STEM or medicine. They aren't smart enough to be engineers or doctors. However, they are smart enough to be bankers, lawyers, and salesmen. Also, their high extroversion helps with charming people, thereby enhancing their performance in finance, law, and sales. These are all professions where you need to be good with people. You can't be a socially awkward autistic genius. Their low agreeableness enhances their performance in finance, law, and sales, since these are domains that involve endless zero-sum competition, something disagreeable people are psychologically comfortable with, but agreeable people are not. Warrior mentality equals high energy, or industriousness plus low agreeableness plus low neuroticism. Businessman's psychological profile needed to succeed in finance, law, and sales. Above average IQ, over 110. Above average energy and industriousness. Below average neuroticism. Below average agreeableness. Above average cunning and social skills. Take the warrior mentality. Add on top of it above average IQ and above average cunning. This is the businessman's psychological profile. Enjoy the journey. There is no destination. There is only one destination, and that's death. girlfriend accused me of toxic masculinity. Weeks later, she walked in on me injecting testosterone cypionate and screaming in horror said, "What are you doing?" Injecting toxic masculinity. On a more serious note, if you are a man and at this point you still haven't been accused of toxic masculinity, get your blood work done. Your testosterone levels are probably below 800 ng/dl. Intense inequality has side effects. Higher homicide rates, more violence, lower social trust, more polarized politics, and violent revolution becomes more likely. Poverty does not drive violence. Inequality does. Inequality, the Gini coefficient, is the single most powerful thing that drives the homicide rate. Inequality drives violence. The more unequal your society becomes, the more violent it will be. Why? As inequality rises, the competition for power intensifies. So far as seizing power is concerned, violence is the nuclear option. Inequality rising also increases the probability of violent revolution. At minimum, risking inequality will make politics more polarized. From 1980 to 2020, inequality in America skyrocketed. Not by coincidence. During the same time period, politics in America became way more intense. As inequality rises, the probability of violent revolution also rises. There is some degree of inequality that a society cannot tolerate without falling apart. I fear modern America is dangerously close to hitting this point. When people want to believe a thing is true, they will accept it as true even when there is little or no evidence to support it. When people don't want to believe a thing is true, they will reject it, even when there is plenty of concrete evidence to support it. Inequality drives violence. This is a fact that right-wing Americans viciously deny because it contradicts their desire to believe that inequality is not a problem. Intelligence is real, and IQ tests measure it. This is a fact that left-wing Americans viciously deny, because it contradicts their desire to believe in the lie that is blank slate theory. People will deny scientific facts if the facts contradict the political narrative they desire to believe is true. Gini coefficient measures wealth inequality. Rulers and tape measures measure my dick. Intense wealth inequality increases the probability of violent revolution. 1970, Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. Right before revolution, Gini coefficient was 50%. 1889, France, right before the French Revolution. Gini coefficient was 50%. Modern America's Gini coefficient is 50%, maybe 55%. Euphemistic language is the means by which powerful people conceal their sins. Power will give any man respectability, no matter how heinous his actions may be. Men engage in evil to make more money because they understand that a rich man is granted more respect than a good man. Being evil and being widely respected are not mutually exclusive. The most evil people on the planet are respectable. Virtue almost never wins a man respect. Power always does. Disrespect is the most common trigger for violence. Issues of respect and status become much more heightened in a very unequal world. If you want to earn the respect of an intelligent autistic man, display wisdom. If you want to win the respect of a narcissistic man, do what you would do to make a woman want to sleep with you. be good-looking, like me, have worldly wealth, be rich and powerful. If you want to win the respect of a psychopathic man, display a sky-high stress tolerance, show you are just as cold as he is. A quote from Illimitable Man. Men want their team to win. Women want to be on the winning team. End quote. Men have stronger in-group solidarity and out-group enmity than women do. Men want the tribe to win. Women have far less to gain if the tribe wins, and far less to lose if the tribe loses. When the invaders come, the men hate them and want to kill them. Meanwhile, the women are almost indifferent to whether their own men win or the invaders win. If the tribe surrenders to the invaders, all the men of the tribe will be killed. If the tribe fights the invaders and loses, all the men of the tribe will be killed. If the tribe fights the invaders and wins, the men of the tribe will survive. As such, the correct course of action for the men of the tribe is obvious: fight and win. Meanwhile, if the tribe fights the invaders and wins, the women of the tribe will be fine, and they'll continue to fuck with the men of their tribe. However, if the tribe surrenders or fights and loses, all of the men of the tribe will be killed, but the women of the tribe won't be killed. Narcissistic denigration equals denigrating others so you can feel superior in comparison. Narcissistic injury equals exploding in rage when insulted. There's a huge amount of Machiavellianism involved in running a restaurant. Here's how. You have to charm customers. You have to profit off the labor of employees, Law 7. You have to win zero-sum negotiations over price with suppliers. You have to persuade bankers to lend you money to get the business starting capital raised. You have to charm and persuade government regulators so that they leave you the fuck alone. Good Lord, if something as simple as cooking food and serving it to people has a huge amount of Machiavellianism involved with it, then every profession must have a significant amount of Machiavellianism involved. The work in finance and law are similar in the following ways. IQ. You need an IQ of 110, maybe 120. An IQ of 140 up is completely unnecessary. You need to be smart, but not a genius. Cunning. You need significantly above average cunning or social skills. You need to be good at manipulating people. The hours are terrible. 80-hour work weeks, all-nighters, and surprise 3 a.m. phone calls from angry clients. All else equal, a society with strong family units will crush a society with weak family units. In the war for global dominance between America and China in the 21st century, this will be a significant factor. In America, over 50% of children are raised without a father. Single motherhood is the norm. In China, single motherhood is unheard of. In the long term, from 2020 to 2040, the West will lose and China will win. Why? The West. Dysfunctional gender roles, feminism, lots of single mother or absentee father households. Dysgenics. Low IQ people are outbreeding high IQ people. Low IQ immigrants entering the West. China. Functioning gender roles. Properly operating families. Higher average IQ, 105 rather than 100. Unified culture. Collectivist. Not busy with ethnic groups infighting. Everyone in the country is Chinese. The West denies that IQ exists, since it is politically incorrect to point out that some people are smarter or dumber than others. China acknowledges the validity of IQ, and forces their high IQ teenagers to do engineering work for the government. Life isn't about what you get. Life is about what you become. Better to die while you're still something you want to be than live and become something you do not want to be. A quote from Balthasar Gracian: "A man is to be judged by his virtue, not his fortune." End quote. A man without a purpose is a man without a soul. A quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson: "They measure their esteem of each other by what each has, and not by what each is. But a cultivated man becomes ashamed of his property, out of a new respect for his nature." End quote. A quote from Illimitable Man: "Psychopaths make good soldiers, traders, bankers, anyone with a detached modality and high stress tolerance. Grandiose narcissists make good salesmen, high energy, persuasive, outgoing. They believe in the product." End quote. A quote from Illimitable Man: "Autists make good engineers due to their intense systematizing." End quote. Autism is caused by unusually high exposure to prenatal testosterone. Psychopathy is caused by genetics and is marked by an inactive amygdala. Narcissism is heavily driven by environmental factors, not just genetics. Narcissistic men often have abusive childhoods, and the relationship does seem to be casual. If you abuse your sons, the probability they will grow up to be narcissists dramatically increases. As much as I find narcissism to be distasteful, I must admit it does seem to enhance performance in many domains. Narcissistic men often make great salesmen and politicians. The masses find their narcissism to be charismatic. Trump is a contemporary example. Autistic men and narcissistic men are opposites in many ways. Autistic men tend towards introversion. Narcissistic men tend towards extroversion. Autistic men don't value worldly wealth as much as most people. They don't care for money, power, status, or fame. Narcissistic men care about worldly wealth far more than most people. They intensely desire money and power. Autistic men are often spiritually minded. They like things such as art, music, and philosophy. Narcissistic men are not spiritually minded. You will never meet a narcissistic man who thinks philosophy is interesting. Narcissistic men care about aesthetics. They judge people heavily on the basis of how physically attractive or ugly they are. They are heavily influenced by the halo effect of good-looking people like myself, and the horns effect of ugly people. Autistic men don't care about aesthetics. They aren't heavily influenced by the halo effect and horns effect. Autism seems to be a superpower for doing the work in engineering and STEM. You will probably never encounter a narcissistic man who is great at doing engineering work. Perhaps they exist, but I've never encountered one. Autistic men have no hope of being able to do sales work, since they are terrible at charming people. Narcissistic men often do very well with sales work, since their extroversion and apparent confidence helps with charming people. Many people find narcissists to be charismatic. Women find narcissistic men to be sexually attractive. Women find autistic men to be unattractive, or at least awkward. I have never encountered an autistic man who was good at seducing women. I have never encountered a narcissistic man who was bad at seducing women. Autistic men tend to be thick-skinned. They have zero emotional reaction to insults. They are also indifferent to compliments from others. As such, they are immune to charm and also immune to provocation. Narcissistic men tend to be thin-skinned. They will explode in rage if insulted. They are also heavily influenced by compliments. They love to have their ego stroked. As such, they are vulnerable to both charm and provocation. Law 39. Offensive application. In some sense, autists are low attack and high defense. They aren't good at manipulating others, yet they themselves are immune to manipulation, or at least they are immune to both charm and provocation. Narcissists, on the other hand, are high attack and low defense. They are good at manipulating others, yet they themselves are easily manipulated. They are